A reading from Lamentations. To what shall I compare you? Or to what shall I liken you, O daughter of Jerusalem? To what shall I equal you, that I may comfort you, O virgin daughter of Zion? For great as the sea is your destruction. The word of the Lord. St. Alphonsus, in speaking of the sorrows of Mary, describes Mary as the queen of martyrs because her martyrdom was longer and greater than that of all the martyrs. St. Bernard tells us, Mary was a martyr, not by the sword of the executioner, but by the bitter sorrow she bore in her heart. St. Bernard also says, the passion of Jesus began with his birth, and therefore Mary, like Jesus her son, endured her martyrdom throughout her life. When Jeremiah considered the greatness of the sufferings of Mary, the mother of sorrows, at the death of her son, he was unable to find anyone with whom he could compare her, leading him to say, to what shall I compare you? Or to what shall I liken you, O daughter of Jerusalem? Great is the sea of your destruction. The heart of Mary became a mirror of the passion of her son, faithfully reflecting the blows, the wounds, and all that Jesus suffered. Although the life of Mary, like the life of Jesus, was laced with sorrows, the Church singles out 7 sorrows or dolors for the rest of us, so that we, her children, can reflect and commemorate them. The first sorrow, at the time of the presentation, Simeon, taking the child Jesus in his arms, prophesied to Mary that the child was set for the fall and the resurrection of others, and that he should be a sign to be contradicted. He told Mary about sorrows to come, and your own soul a sword shall pierce, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. In the second dolor, we see that the sword of Simeon had not waited long to pierce the soul of Mary, as she fled to Egypt by night in order to protect the child from the hatred of King Herod. Another special dolor of the Blessed Virgin was when she returned to Jerusalem with Joseph, tormented and racked by anxiety. Mary and Joseph searched for 3 long days until they found the boy Christ. The fourth dolor recalls to our mind that dread hour when Jesus looked upon Our Lady, and Mary gazed on the bruised and bleeding face of her son amidst the awful clamor on the road to Calvary. In the fifth dolor, Mary stands broken-hearted beneath the cross of Jesus, where he poured forth his precious blood to the last drop for our redemption. We contemplate the sixth dolor, our Mother of Sorrows, after the crucifixion, receiving the still, inanimate, tortured body of her son into her arms. Finally, in the seventh dolor, we meditate on our Blessed Lady, when she said farewell to Jesus the night of that first Good Friday. Where her treasure lay, there was Mary's heart, with Jesus in the tomb. Again, echoing the words of the prophet Jeremiah, to what shall I compare you? Or to what shall I liken you, daughter of Jerusalem? To what shall I equal you, O virgin daughter of Zion? for great as the sea is your destruction. Sorrow comes to all of us on our pilgrimage of life as a consequence of the misfortunes that happen to us either from within or without. Bereavement, loss of fortune, calumny, malicious practices designed against us are some of the causes of our exterior affliction. Sickness, humiliation, temptation, and remorse for past sins often give rise in us to interior sufferings. There are many incorrect ideas in our world about suffering. There are those who falsely think that the Christian way of life glorifies suffering for its own sake. Actually, the Christian ideal is to use suffering as a means of virtue, to turn evil into good. Suffering is not a good in itself. To suffer for suffering's sake is just not good. It is indifferent. The good or evil in suffering lies in a person's attitude toward it. It may be either a blessing or a curse. It may strengthen a person's nature or cripple it. Just take, for example, the two criminals who were crucified with our Lord. Both suffered the same torments. While one accepted his state as a just punishment and obtained from Jesus a promise of future happiness, the other made his state worse than before by railing and cursing. The important question is, how do we embrace our suffering? Our human nature can be purified and refined by sorrow born in patience for the love of God. And if we go to Mary, our mother, in our hour of suffering, in our time of trial, not only shall we receive from her consolation in our affliction, but we shall also learn by her example. There is something particularly personal about the cross in each one of us. For some, it is mental anguish, dread of death, unreasonable fear of sins long since forgiven. For some, it may be a persistent and harassing temptation, hidden perhaps from every eye, never spoken of except in the confessional. Or it may be physical pain, incessant headaches, sleepless nights. Despite the differences our personal cross may have, each one may have the potential of having a sacramental effect on us. Our suffering can become a fountain of much grace to the soul if we bear it in patience and for the love of God. Ironically, it will make us more gentle, more tolerant, sympathetic, resigned, and charitable. Let us remember that the royal road of the cross, the road of daily suffering, is the only road to the crown of eternal glory that God has prepared for us.